Hello, and welcome to your dissertation, Research, Methodology, and Design in Chapter 3. It's the second section. I'm Dr. Joel B. Goodin, and I'll just be discussing this piece by piece. Describe the research methodology and design. So here, basically what you had at the end of the intro, you can state again, methodology. You're not going to say was. The methodology for the proposed study is qualitative, is a qualitative approach or quantitative or mixed methods. The design the design will or is a case study or multi-site case study or whatever it is. It could be phenomenological, ethnographic, it could be quasi-experimental, quantitative. Of course, it wouldn't be those things if it's qualitative. So you're really looking at your qualitative options and your quantitative options. So describe the research methodology and design. So describe means sort of tell. So spelled that wrong. Qualitative approach will allow to ask how, why, when, things like that, whatever research says, with a citation probably at the end. A case study is strategic because it allows you to do some things about that. And here you can start to build in you can build in some wording. I gave you some wording if you'll look back to chapter 1, the nature section, and it's going to look a lot like this. You can use something like this if you want. Basically, because it says elaborate upon their appropriateness in relation to the problem, purpose, and research questions. So instead of doing one for qualitative and one for quant, you can do them both, or one for the methodology and one for the design. You can do them together. So you could say let's say qualitative case study can address a problem which is, and you'll want to restate your problem verbatim. Qualitative case study is addressed or addresses, I should say, because, and then you give your logic, and so then you want to sort of elaborate, which is sort of what you're doing up here. It all ties together. So you're sort of saying, now that I've discussed, here's my methodology, here's my design, then you can sort of discuss the alignment with the problem, purpose, and research questions. And then you can go a step further and sort of elaborate on, here's why qualitative case study is often used for this type of research. It's based on the population I'm trying to reach and the phenomena I'm trying to understand. It's good or appropriate. You're going to elaborate on this as well. So you could sort of copy and paste these from your nature section. I would suggest modifying your wording a bit. You might work with your chair to combine them a bit, but having these sort of template sentences to begin is a good place to start. Having it in there, and then sort of modifying, sort of editing for concision, that sort of thing can be really useful after that. So it doesn't look like you just copied a big section from your Chapter 1 Nature. So here, then you're asked to identify alternative methodologies and designs, and then indicate why they were determined to be less appropriate than the one selected. So the proposed study will use whatever you will use is what you put in there. So let's say you chose qualitative case study. Quantitative methodology was considered. It offers, and here's where you really want to build into getting some literature from Yin, Miles and Huberman, maybe some Cresswell, but try to avoid the textbooks, Trocum. Those are just some of the options. Quantitative methodology, which I spelled with an IE, was considered. So you want to say, here's what it allows or supports, measurement of variables, details on what a quant study can do, citation, for whatever you say about the quantitative study, and then say, however, the goal of the study was to understand perceptions, maybe, of phenomena. Therefore, measurement and thus a quantitative approach were not appropriate for the study. Due to the ability of a qualitative approach to understand how, when, and why, maybe. With regard to phenomena or perceptions of phenomena. A qualitative approach was chosen. All right, so basically what you're saying here, this sort of funneling is what this second criteria is. It's sort of qual or quant. Here's what they both offer. Here's why one was rejected. Here's why the other was accepted. Okay? So that's basically the first conversation. And then you're going to go to, let's say you chose if qual, several designs, several qualitative designs were considered for the proposed study. You probably want to, the one you're picking, you want to save for last. For instance, a phenomenological study or design is useful for, and you'll want to elaborate on that with citation, because the current study does not seek to do that, whatever the phenomenological, however you describe it, you want to say But my study is trying to do this other thing, so that's why the phenomenological is not appropriate, because the current study does not seek to do that. The phenomenological another qualitative design that was considered was the ethnographic. And here you're basically going to do the same thing. It is useful for because the proposed study is not doing that, whatever the ethnographic, you're basically showing, you're trying to emphasize the mismatch of an ethnographic study or whatever design that you're not using, why it is mismatched. It is useful for this, but that's not what I'm doing. So because the proposed study is not doing that, the ethnographic design was not chosen. And you can go through for, option. I suggest 3 or 4 options. And then let's say you chose a case study. Design allows, or is useful for, insert usefulness, because the study seeks to do that thing that it offers. So have we done what it has asked? Identify alternative methodologies. So we talked, if you're using qual, you want to talk about quant and why you didn't choose it. If you're choosing quant, then you need to talk about qual and why you did not choose it. And then identify alternative methodologies, and then later you'll funnel down from, you won't talk about, like if you're choosing a qualitative methodology, you won't talk about all the quantitative design options. So you'll choose one of these two, and then based on the one you choose, you'll only discuss the design options for that methodology. So you wouldn't go into quasi-experimental, experimental, correlational, if you've already explained why you chose a qualitative study. You wouldn't discuss the quantitative design options, only the qualitative design options. And if you were doing a quantitative methodology approach, then you wouldn't discuss the qualitative design options. So designs indicate why they were determined to be less appropriate than the one selected. So you basically would just want to provide some logic here with support from citations. Again, Yin, Miles and Huberman come to mind, Cresswell and Trocum, but you'll want to avoid textbooks. So cite research articles, peer-reviewed, as current as possible, but some of the methodological articles can get a little dated. You might see a 2006 or 2012 or something. But obviously use the most current that you can find to support your position. And so you're basically saying, well, under qualitative, and you can do a quick Google search for why you chose, so for, let's see. So qualitative design options. This isn't necessarily, I clicked on the first one obviously, but here are some that you can talk about: narrative, phenomenological, grounded theory, case study. obviously we could have included a basic or a general qualitative design. For quantitative, here's a quick list. It looks like from a institution. You could have a descriptive study, correlational, quasi-experimental, or causal comparative, experimental. These are the main four. You could probably find some other options, but those are the ones that you might look into. Ultimately, you want to go through and say, here were 3 others that I considered, or 4 others that I considered. Here's why they were not appropriate. Here's the one that I decided on and why it's appropriate. And then you want to get off the stage. So we've done these things. We didn't simply list and describe research methodologies and designs. We sort of gave a very brief, say, 2-3 sentences about each one. Here's what they do. Here's why they weren't chosen. And providing some logic with a citation to sort of back yourself up. I will see you soon to discuss population and sample. Thank you for your time. Goodbye.